Organizers of massive pro-democracy protests around Hong Kong have rejected a call by the chief executive to end their action, vowing instead to escalate their campaign for genuine universal suffrage.
Leung Chun-ying said the demonstrations that have paralyzed key parts of the city were having an adverse impact on people's lives and the Hong Kong economy. ATV's Anne Chang reports.
The campaign for genuine universal suffrage continued unabated today as protesters blocked roads in some of Hong Kong's busiest areas. Before meeting his executive council this morning, the chief executive urged Occupy Central organizers to call off the protest. Leung Chun-ying said the massive demonstrations have affected people's daily lives and safety, as well as the city's economy and image. He appealed to protesters to free up some main roads because fire trucks and ambulances had to make detours. The occupation of key areas of the city was a response by people angry with China's tight framework on political reform. Thousands more flocked to join after the police used tear gas on Sunday to disperse protesters, the first time that officers have taken such action against Hong Kong people since 1967. Protesters say China's guidelines effectively rule out pan-democrats from standing in the next chief executive election in 2017. But Leung warned that Beijing will not be swayed by illegal protests. When asked if he would resign, the chief executive said any changes in the cabinet would not help in fostering universal suffrage. He also deflected a question on whether the police would use tear gas again or even escalate their action against protesters. Leung said he has confidence in the force, adding there's no need to call in the PLA. He also noted that Occupy Central leaders had pledged to call off their action if the situation got out of control, and he urged them to do so now. But his plea fell on deaf ears.
If CY Leung wants this occupation to be stopped, the best way is for him to resign immediately. And then we then have opportunity to start over again the whole constitutional reform process. So for the sake of Hong Kong, for the sake of our community, I appeal to him once again that he should resign immediately.
Student leader Alex Chow threatened to escalate the protest if Leung doesn't meet them to say why tear gas was used against protesters.
One is to really widen the occupying area, and another one would be to launch, say, labor strike and other strike from other aspects. And the third part would be to occupy some governmental buildings.
Chow also claimed that the chief executive is not in total control of the situation.
We noticed that actually the government is under great pressure, and we will demand and call for more people to participate in the Occupy movement today and in the coming 2 days, because we believe the ongoing occupying movement would for sure generate sufficient pressure to the government.
Protesters in Admiralty also demanded that Leung must go.
I think he should reply to our demand head on, not just keep asking us to go home, because they didn't solve the problems. They didn't address the problem at its roots.
What he's saying is just useless and nonsense, and we're not blocking any emergency service, and it's still working fine.
Pan-democratic lawmakers, meanwhile, pressed on with their move to impeach Leung. The Civic Party's Alan Leung sent a letter requesting LegCo President Zhang Yuk-sing to hold an emergency meeting next month would be sent by today. Anne Chang, ATV News.
There was a notable easing of tensions at the protests, which has spread from Admiralty to Mong Kok, following a sharp reduction in the number of police officers deployed there.
More people are expected to join rallies across the city ahead of the National Day holiday tomorrow. Earlier, I visited the protest headquarters in Admiralty. Day 3 of the Occupy Central sit-in saw tens of thousands of protesters refusing to budge from their makeshift base in Admiralty, despite the very hot weather warning. It was a crucial day for the civil disobedience movement because many more people are expected to join the rally as Hong Kong marks National Day with a holiday tomorrow. Most police officers who were deployed when the massive protests began were withdrawn, following the public outcry after tear gas was fired at unarmed protesters on Sunday. But some demonstrators are worried that officers will return in force soon.
So many people said that they will come here tonight, and then actually tonight is quite dangerous.
We think it's not a reason for us to go away.
I think if more people come out and more people staying here, the less the police will do something harmful to us.
Tensions here in Admiralty eased this morning with the police presence significantly lower than yesterday. Protesters took the opportunity to clean up the place, set up 8 tents and stock up on vital supplies. They vowed to stay on until the very last minute in their quest for genuine democracy. The protesters not only removed the rubbish, they also sorted out the trash for recycling. Many said they didn't mind getting their hands dirty, as they don't want the government to have an excuse to condemn their peaceful demonstration.
We are Hong Kong citizens. We love Hong Kong. We think we have the responsibility to protect Hong Kong in terms in politics and both in the environmentals.
We want to engage in this volunteer work and help others who are sitting under the sunny day and to be more comfortable. Donations of supplies including food and drinks and even wet towels were provided to those who braved the scorching heat.
I'm so touching when people, they don't need a leader to voice out what you can do, but they just do by themselves automatically.
Foreigners also turned out to support the cause.
It's redefining what the word protest means in the world. People think protest means explosions and clashings and things like that, and of course it opened up like that. And to the credit of everyone here, they came back and weren't deterred by the strong response by the police.
The atmosphere was also peaceful in Mongkok as protesters took turns to address the crowd. An argument broke out this afternoon when those opposed to the sit-in urged participants to go home and stop blocking the roads. Some hurled insults at protesters for causing a disturbance to others working in the area. The police sent negotiators to the scene this afternoon in the hope that the protesters will free up parts of the road for buses to go through. The officers left after the request was rejected. The scene was calm too in Causeway Bay as people continued to gather in front of the Sogo department store. Negotiators also arrived late this afternoon to liaise with protesters who are occupying one of the busiest junctions in the world. There was a nasty shock for protesters in Mongkok early this morning when a car plowed through their ranks.
No one was injured, and the driver was later arrested in his home in Kowloon City for dangerous driving. ATV's Winner Wong reports.
It was the last thing sleepy protesters in Mongkok were expecting. At around 2 a.m., a car plowed through their makeshift camp on Argyle Street and drove on. The protesters had to jump out of the way to avoid injury. They quickly repositioned trucks and used sandbags and rubbish bins to block off the road to prevent a repeat. Officers who had seen the incident on live TV reports said they did not receive any calls, but stopped by to see if anyone had been injured. They also took the chance to retrieve a police car that had been stranded in the area since yesterday. Surrounded by journalists, a Mongkok station sergeant suddenly became emotional. I've been quite upset over the past few days. It seems we've become very unpopular, he lamented. Officers thanked protesters for cooperating with them and promised to investigate. About 90 minutes after the harrowing experience, the police arrested a 59-year-old man at his Kowloon City home.
We located some witnesses who saw a great private car, and we also have information to note about the vehicle number of this car. We located the driver at his residence. We arrested him for dangerous driving because the driving manner was problematic.
According to the police, the driver was in Mongkok to visit a friend and didn't believe that he did anything wrong. Winner Wong, ATV News.